Welcome into another X106 Sports Podcast. I'm Jacob Blair along with Sean Nino and Trevor Mater. Today we are going to discuss some college football rankings, some big college football matchups, as well as the Chiefs a little bit, and some mid-season awards for the NFL season. We're going to start with college football, and just real quick, what were some of your thoughts about this week in college football?
Well, I mean, someone on this group had a very happy weekend. Most of the college teams that I root for actually didn't do well. But there were some good games. I got to watch the Virginia Tech-Miami matchup. That was really good, and they have a big matchup this week. The Hurricanes do against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, one of the top matchups.
Yeah, it was a great weekend for college football. A lot of good games on. You have Bedlam, which Sean and I were talking about this weekend. Bedlam might be the best rivalry in college football right now, and I don't know that there's a close second. Clemson, North Carolina State was good. LSU, Alabama was better than I thought it would be. I mean, it still wasn't great. Miami showed that maybe they're a little bit more for real than people think they are. And to me, the one big takeaway this weekend, and it just really warms my heart, is the thumping that Ohio State took. I mean, I don't think the Big Ten gets a team in the playoffs now, guys. The way things went this weekend with Ohio State losing and Penn State losing, I just don't see it.
Yeah, I think on your point, if Wisconsin does end up to win out the rest of the season, which is going to be tough. I mean, it's the Big Ten. You got to go through a hot Iowa team.
Yeah, so Wisconsin got Iowa, Minnesota, and I believe Michigan. Yep. So I think it's not quite that order, but it's tough. And then you're getting whoever they get in the Big Ten championship game, which could be a really hot Michigan State team, or it could be still Ohio State. Penn State's probably done now because Penn State need Ohio State to lose twice, but they need to win when Ohio State lost those twice, and that didn't happen. So they're probably done as far as the Big Ten championship concerned. So, very interesting, topsy-turvy weekend in college football, but haven't we grown to kind of expect that by now?
Yeah, there's been a lot of crazy games. And that really the Oklahoma State game, the 62-52 score. I wasn't able to watch this game over the weekend, but just seeing this score and just the sheer amount of points being scored just exemplifies Big 12 football.
I'm actually kind of bummed because it was 38-38 at halftime, and I started tuning in the second half, and I was thinking, holy cow, they're going to play to 80, and there wasn't quite as much scoring in the second half. There was only like 40 total points in the second half, and I just don't think that was enough scoring.
There wasn't even that. There were only 20 or 38 points scored in the second half.
That's what I'm saying.
A lot of things everywhere. But
what were there, 52 points in the second quarter alone, something like that?
Yeah, and there were only 24 in the first quarter. I mean, I was watching it, and after the first few drives, I was like, maybe this isn't going to be as high scoring as I would personally hope it to be. And then the second quarter happened. It's like, oh, I like this. And then the third quarter, the defenses actually showed up. I would say, I mean, it's not that these teams don't play defense, but I think the Big 12 offenses are better than a lot of other conferences, but the defense is also that much worse, so it even amplifies it much more to be like, oh, wow, they don't play defense.
Well, and I think with that game, Baker Mayfield kind of supplanted himself as a Heisman favorite right now, and I mean, we're a month away from, actually naming the Heisman Trophy winner, and you look at a lot of the other guys that were kind of in that mix. Bryce Love didn't necessarily have a great weekend. Saquon Barkley, Michigan State, contained him pretty well. Khalil Tate, everyone was kind of on his train. Didn't have the game he was probably looking for against USC. They ended up losing. And then Josh Adams, I believe he got hurt, if I remember correctly. So, I think Mayfield right now is a clear-cut Heisman Trophy favorite at this moment.
Yeah, anytime you put together a game with 598 passing yards, you're making a statement. And this week, also Week 10 college football, the college football rankings came out for the first time. And to me, a little bit of a surprise, they put Georgia on top of the college football rankings. And how do you guys kind of feel about that?
I think it's interesting because Georgia has the better resume. When you look at, they got probably the best win in college football right now on the road against Notre Dame with a freshman quarterback starting. So they got the better win. I think Bama's the better team. I think that's probably pretty clear. I mean, I don't know if you guys have watched Bama play much this year. Watching them play LSU was the first time I'd really got to see a lot of them. good luck scoring on that team. I mean, there's so many dudes that can make plays. I think Bama's a better team. I'm not surprised that Georgia is number one, but in the end, it doesn't really matter because it's probably all going to settle itself out in the SEC championship game, unless Auburn has something to say about it.
Yeah, and looking at just kind of the schedules for these teams, both Georgia and Alabama still have to play Auburn, and there's some crazy things that can happen to really mess everything up. Of course, that actually has to happen, and that's Auburn beating both Georgia and Alabama. I don't think that's going to happen, but just some crazy stuff could happen if Auburn is able to pull that off.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. This just seems like a year where everything that can be crazy is crazy, and I love it. I mean, I know we said we don't want to go into scenarios, so I'll try to avoid scenarios, but I think this might be the year, guys, and I've been saying since they added the playoff in 2014 that at some point we are going to get a 2-loss team in the playoff. This might be the year. I don't know who that 2-loss team is going to be, but this might be the year.
I don't know. There are a lot of 1-loss teams. I mean, just right now, the AP top 10, the first 2-loss team is at number 10.
But it's Auburn.
It's Auburn, yeah. So, I mean, it still takes...
Well, but you look at it that way, though, Sean. If Auburn wins, and I talked about some Weekend Sports Kickoff last week, if Auburn wins out, because they have one loss in the SEC, so if Auburn beats Georgia and they beat Alabama, they'll win the division over Alabama, and they'll probably get Georgia again in the SEC title game. And they beat Georgia again, you'll have 2 wins against Georgia and a win against Alabama on your resume. In the SEC, which I know the SEC's been down this year, but the football committee still loves the SEC and cherishes the ground it walks on. So a 2-loss Auburn team would get in. I think there's only a handful of teams right now when you look at the fact they have 2 losses. To me, I think there's only about 2 teams with 2 losses that have a legitimate shot. I think Auburn and I think Michigan State. Those are the only 2 teams with 2 losses that I think there will be some crazy stuff to happen, but they could get in, I think.
They could. And I guess we're all doing this talk before the actual new college football rankings are going to come out at around in like 2 hours or so.
I believe around 7 or so, yeah.
So by the time this actual stuff comes out, they'll already have the actual rankings. But as you guys have talked about, I think it's going to be hard for any of the top 6 to change. I mean, if not even more than that, the top 5. I was looking at a different poll. That's fine. I think TCU is going to jump up. I don't think Oklahoma did enough to be able to jump Clemson.
Well, and they did give up 52 points. I know it's the Big 12, but it's kind of hard to move a team up over a team that won when you gave up 52 points and winning.
But you also went on the road to Oklahoma State
with a good offense. Don't get me wrong. I think your top 5 are going to stay exactly the same. I think Georgia, Bama, Notre Dame, Clemson, unless this win over LSU was enough of a win to flip Bama and Georgia, although I don't know why you would do that. I think Georgia, Bama, Notre Dame, Clemson, Oklahoma, your top 5 are going to stay the same. I think TCU kind of gets left in that 8 spot. I'm going to say Miami and Wisconsin probably both jump them because they're both undefeated. Wisconsin looked pretty good in the second half against Indiana. Granted, it was Indiana. And Miami surprised me against Virginia Tech, so I think TCU gets stuck at 8. That loss to Iowa State still kind of stings them, but they get a chance to make it up this week with Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's true. And as you talked about with the Hurricanes, you and I were talking back and forth, and I think it was at half, or it was right after the third quarter started. They came out and they threw 2 interceptions. I was like, they are trying to lose this game. Like, they have all the pieces to come out and win. It's just not coming together. And then, lo and behold, the end of the third quarter, I'm like, oh, never mind. They're here to win the game, and as we were.
Yeah, and I. Looking at Wisconsin and Miami still being undefeated, I think those are the 2 teams that can easily break into the top 4, meaning they stay undefeated. Mm-hmm. The big question is if those 2 teams make it to their conference championships undefeated, what happens when they lose those conference championship games? That's the question with those, and then it's going to get really messy.
And I think
pick your 4 teams.
I think it depends on the situation and who they lose to. If Miami loses to Notre Dame this week and then wins out, they'll probably still be in. I mean, I don't want to say for sure they'll be in, but I would think they'll probably still be in because they'll have won over Clemson, and their 1 loss will have been to Notre Dame.
Yeah, but see, at this point, like, they might be 8th in the college football rankings. So if they lose,
Yeah.
and that's going to drop them down to about 15, and that may be far enough out that they can't make it back up.
But what was Ohio State that one year, like 7th or 8th going into the last week of the season when they ended up in 4th? So the committee just kind of, I think they kind of take it a week by week thing. One thing that'll be interesting to me is I think Wisconsin loses. I think they're done. Like, I don't think Wisconsin has enough. At least Miami can say, well, we have a win over Virginia Tech. We have a win over Clemson. Or we will have, those. What will Wisconsin be able to say they have? Let's say they lose to Iowa this week.
They will have cheese.
But what will they have? And you can't even say they have the Packers right now, but that's a whole nother story. What will they be able to say they have? A win over Michigan? That's your marquee win? I don't know that that's...
And, I mean, they're not even ranked anymore, so you can't even...
So you can't make
and
that...
it's at home, I mean...
you can make the argument that you have a good
maybe
loss.
Maybe it's Iowa if they win, but Iowa may barely be in the top 25.
Yeah, that's not a win that probably makes a strong case to get in the playoffs.
I mean, they just kind of got...
Well, I mean, I guess you would get the Big Ten championship.
But they have to win that.
You have to win that. But then you still got one loss, and a lot of people have kind of looked at this conference and said it doesn't have a chance. So I think Michigan State has a chance. If Michigan State beats Ohio State this week and then beats, I'm going to guess, Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game, you'll have a win over Wisconsin, a win over Ohio State, a win over Penn State, and a win over Michigan. I know Michigan is not in the top 12, but it's still a good win. You'd have enough good wins, and your 2 losses are at overtime against a good Northwestern team, and by 20 to Notre Dame.
Yep.
And looking to this week now, week 11 in college football, similar to last week, there's a lot of really good games, and then there's 2 pretty important matchups, that being number 3 Notre Dame and Miami. They will be playing each other this weekend, as well as TCU and Oklahoma. And for me, these 2 games are elimination games for these 2 teams.
And I think the TCU Oklahoma game is definitely an elimination game. The Notre Dame Miami game, definitely if Notre Dame loses. Like, if Notre Dame loses, I don't know that they can climb back, but maybe they can. Yeah. I mean, like I said, at some point a 2-loss team's going to get in. Maybe Notre Dame, with the resume they have and the schedule that they have, maybe they could be that team. So I don't know. Oklahoma TCU is going to be really interesting.
Both the Notre Dame Miami and TCU Oklahoma game on at the same time. I might have to pull up the good old laptop and just put the other one on the TV because
this is going to be awesome. Good. This Saturday was so awesome. We get, other than the Bearcat game, which wasn't quite as awesome, I get home from the Bearcat game and I have the Iowa game going on, and they're blowing out Ohio State. My girlfriend's a huge Iowa State fan, so we're flipping back and forth between that, and they're driving against West Virginia. And then you also have Bedlam going on, and then you have Clemson and NC State. This is an awesome weekend for college football, and this upcoming weekend looks the same. I think I counted 6 matchups between top 25 ranked teams. You begin with Stanford and Washington on Friday night. That'll be an interesting one. And then you get on to Saturday, you get Georgia at Auburn. Like we talked about Auburn earlier, maybe they could play spoiler. And then, like you said, Oklahoma, TCU, and Miami, Notre Dame all at the same time. And Alabama, Mississippi State. I think Alabama's only like a 19-point favorite in this game.
I mean, there's some still other top 25 matchups. You have Ohio State, Michigan State, Oklahoma State, and Iowa State. Iowa State might drop out, but I can't confirm or deny.
I mean, that was a good loss to West Virginia.
See, I mean,
there's some good matchups this week.
What kind of a game is it now that like Clemson versus Florida State isn't even? It is absolutely nothing.
Does this put Florida State on upset alert? Maybe.
No, I don't know.
I don't think Florida State's a bad team. I mean, I'm not saying they're good, but I don't think they're bad. Did anyone else see today?
I think if you lose to Florida, then you have to start.
Did anyone see today? Actually, they did reschedule their game against Louisiana Monroe.
They didn't.
They did. It was a game that was postponed for the Hurricane.
Oh, it's the last game of the year. Okay.
Yep. Well, it would normally be the conference championship game, but I think they've realized we're not going to play in the conference championship
let's see,
game.
They've lost to Alabama. Okay. NC State, not a horrible loss. Miami, not bad. Louisville, I mean,
not terrible, not great.
Not terrible.
The one that really sticks out.
Boston College, that's just
drubbing to Boston College, who was 6-4.
Yeah. So
5-4, excuse me.
But it's still not a win that you can have.
No, in that game, Boston College's quarterback was 6 of 20 for 54 yards.
So clearly, There were some extenuating circumstances, is what you're telling me.
I wouldn't be surprised if Florida State comes in and upsets Clemson. I wouldn't at all.
I mean, I don't know if you've seen Clemson. Their defense is really good.
Yeah, well, Clemson beat them. Or Syracuse beat them.
Yeah, but that was without Kelly Bryant, so you have to...
Yeah.
Hey, I'm just saying, like, these are the type of
Are
things
we giving Clemson too much of a free pass because of that? I mean, is it too much to just say, they lost that game? I don't think I've talked to anyone when we mentioned Clemson in the playoffs. Do you look at this, like, who they beat? Auburn's the one win, I guess, that they have that really means much right now. Virginia Tech. But everyone goes, okay, well, they lost to Syracuse, but the quarterback was out.
I mean, that's a big part, though. Like, if Jalen Hurts went out for Alabama, and let's say that they lose to, like, Auburn, that's going to mean more than if they just outright win and lost to Auburn. So, there's always things that have to be looked into. It's not just this team beat this team. Generally, I mean, maybe your best player goes out, and then sometimes it is, hey, two teams that are matched up very well, and, hey, the better team came out.
It'll be interesting. I'm really excited for this weekend. Hopefully we can get home from St. Joe in time to catch some football Saturday evening.
And college football's been crazy all year. I don't think that's going to stop this week. And just looking into the next couple weeks, I think the debate over the college football rankings will just continue to heat up as we get closer to crunch time.
And I think this is great. And maybe, like, all the craziness of this, it brings up a good argument for an expanded playoff. But at the same time, it brings up an argument to stick to a 14 playoff because you get the drama and you get the excitement. If there was an 18 playoff right now, I don't know you'd have quite the drama. I think you might get a better playoff, but I don't know that you'd have quite the drama because everyone go, okay, Alabama, Georgia, Wisconsin, Clemson, Notre Dame, Miami, Oklahoma. The only one that would maybe be kind of an argument would be that 8 spot, Washington, TCU, or Auburn, or Penn State. So I think the 14 playoff, I've grown to like it because it sets up an argument. At least one conference is guaranteed to get left out.
Yeah, and this year it might even be more than that because of the way things have played out.
My money's on three conferences getting left out.
And that'll wrap up our college football talk, and we're going to move to the NFL now. And us all being Kansas City Chiefs fans, Kansas City goes to Dallas, loses 28-17, and just seemed like they just didn't quite have what it took to win that football game.
Yeah, when I saw on Friday that Ezekiel Elliott was going to play, I was convinced that he was going to run for like 250 yards because the way the rush defense has been, it's just been atrocious. He didn't even have 100, which is surprising. But
I mean, that wasn't the big issue of the game. The offense really couldn't get anything going. And I mean, I think I messaged you that they had one good drive the entire game because I do not count the play before the half as being a good drive. It's an amazing play that happened, but it's not a good drive. And then coming out in the third quarter, probably the only one that even constitutes a drive. And I, too, switched my pick from Kansas City to Dallas when I heard that Zeke was coming in because not only did I, much like you, think that he was going to run over the defense, I thought that the way Dallas plays, this helps them so much because they are going to try and control the clock with their offense so they can keep their defense off of the field, and it worked its magic.
Indeed it did. And I'm not going to panic too much on the Chiefs right now because you look at the quarterbacks they've played in the schedule they played. Okay, you face Tom Brady, Carson Wentz, Phillip Rivers, Kirk Cousins, Deshaun Watson, Ben Roethlisberger, Derek Carr, Trevor Simeon's the lone really bad one in there, and then Dak Prescott. You faced 8 guys that have been a Pro Bowler at some point. I believe Dak was a Pro Bowler last year.
Well,
Deshaun Watson hasn't yet.
To be fair, everybody was a Pro Bowler last year, but
you faced some talent. You faced some talent.
Yeah, okay, yeah. It's still.
You look at the second half of their schedule. You get the Giants coming out of the
Luke
bye.
McCown.
Yeah,
Tyrod Taylor,
I'll pull up the Chiefs
who's still
schedule.
a good quarterback, but he's not Tom Brady. He's not Derek Carr.
Let me pull up the Chiefs schedule here real quick, and we'll just run through the quarterbacks.
Real quick, Trevor, to your point, the one thing that concerns me is you mentioned all these quarterbacks and these teams that the Chiefs have had to play. Well, these are the teams you're going to see in the playoffs.
And that is the thing
the
that's
concern is now this, second half of the first half of the season, the Chiefs have kind of lost what they had at the start of the season, and it's just a little bit of a concern. And maybe the bye week they'll be able to fix that. But
when I look at the quarterbacks in the AFC that the Chiefs could face in the playoffs, I'm not concerned about the Patriots as much as I should be, just because the Chiefs always match up well with them. Houston, obviously, Deshaun Watson out. I'm not scared of Tom Savage.
I'm not scared of Tom Savage.
Even if they bring in Colin Kaepernick, whoever they bring in, I'm not that scared.
You mean you're not scared of Josh Johnson?
Yeah, who they just signed, Josh Johnson.
He hasn't taken a snap since 2011.
Yeah, and they just signed him.
Over Kaepernick. but they got rid of McGloin.
Derek Carr doesn't totally scare me, but I mean the kid's capable. The matchup that really, really scares me is Pittsburgh, just because they always match up. But anyways, going back to what I was saying, the quarterbacks that they will face the rest of the season, Eli Manning, who we can all agree is not worried.
I mean, they might bench him this week,
so it could be Davis Webb.
Take that.
Eli Manning and or Davis Webb.
I don't think Davis Webb is the quarterback of the future.
But he's a backup right now, and it sounds like they might go to him to see if they want to see what they have in him.
Okay, that's fair.
Tyrod Taylor, who isn't bad.
I would say he's a Pro Bowler, but
he was last year.
Their offense hasn't been their wide receivers haven't been great. Shady can always destroy you.
Josh McCown, who's been playing surprisingly well in New York, but they don't scare me. Derek Carr, bad at home.
Yeah, I don't know.
Phillip Rivers.
Okay.
Jay Cutler.
Okay, please.
And either Trevor Siemian, Brock and the Dumpster Bunch, or Paxton Lynch. Or maybe by that point, maybe John Elway. It's tough to say by that point.
Yeah.
So, the second half of the season, I look to see the Chiefs. I'm going to say the second half of the season they go 6-1. I think they'll lose one in there. They haven't had their annual how in the world did we lose this game,
I don't know.
Game yet.
The Raiders game was pretty close to that.
What's that is, I don't think it was. I don't think it was that game. There'll be a game where they'll lose to a team they shouldn't have lost to.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the Raiders game was that. Maybe we got out of the way about 3 weeks earlier than we normally do.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And real quick, one other concern I had with the Dallas game is Kareem Hunt only got 13 touches, only 9 carries.
That's not a great Dallas run defense. It's not bad.
This is the same thing that we said a few years ago when Jamal wasn't getting carries. And I mean, it's hard to tell because there are points at which they were down 14-3, so you're not gonna run the ball. If you're down by a lot, you don't run the ball. To me,
the big problem is the play calling. I think at times they've gotten too cute.
I think I did in the red zone. I think I tweeted that. I was like, please don't get too cute. And then they just ran it in with Kareem Hunt. They threw the thing to Travis Kelce. He's like, oh, okay. I'm glad that we're not having Tyreek Hill throw a interception here.
And if you look at the last several weeks, Kareem Hunt's touches have been down from where they were at the start of the year. And, in the middle of the year, he did slow down a little bit in terms of yards per carry and what he was able to do. But limiting his touches to this little, he's got that big play capability that, Tyreek Hill, he has that big play capability. We only give him 13 touches. That just lowers your percentage that he's going to break one, for 30, 40, 50 yards.
I think it also, again, has to deal with what I talked about with Dallas controlling the amount of times you're actually going to get the ball. I think the Chiefs' offense had a relatively bad day, and that it all just kind of came together that when you have 2 to 3 less times actually try and score, then everything's going to be reduced.
Yeah, and the Chiefs head into their bye week this week. After that, they will head on to play the New York Giants. Now we will move to the NFL mid-season awards, and we'll start right at the top one with MVP. Sean, who do you have as the mid-season MVP?
Well, for me, I kind of picked a few different guys who could get it kind of down the road. But for right now, I have Carson Wentz, Eagles quarterback. I think since they have the best record in the NFL, it's not quite de facto to him, but I think just because of the numbers that he's been able to put up, that he's earned it. And some other guys, Tom Brady, he's always been in that discussion. Alex Smith, I think if he keeps up these numbers and kind of gets back on track, he had a touchdown two touchdowns and the interception on Sunday. So, I mean, his first interception, okay, you can't really complain about that. But then Drew Brees, right now the Saints are 6-2, and it may not just be because of what he's doing, but quarterbacks tend to kind of get that edge whenever your team's doing well.
Yeah, I gotta go Carson Wentz right now too. 2-3 weeks ago, I probably would have gone Alex Smith, and I don't think I'm not saying I won't say any. I don't think that a lot of these problems are Alex Smith's fault. I think he's played pretty well.
I mean, the only, like, other than the interception and, like, he missed Tyreek Hill. Like, he actually overthrew Tyreek Hill. You know how hard it is to overthrow Tyreek Hill? Like, that's just, like, that doesn't happen that often.
I would go Carson Wentz. I mean, just the way the kid's been playing. I remember thinking at the beginning of the year that he was going to have a breakthrough year. I didn't think he'd have an MVP caliber year.
I didn't even think he was going to have a great year, so that's on me.
I think you could make his, the 2016 NFL draft counterpart. I think you make a legitimate argument for Jared Goff, too. Or Todd Gurley as well. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are playing at MVP caliber level. Like I said, Goff, Gurley, Wentz. Tom Brady's always going to be in the mix. Deshaun Watson before he got injured. Alex Smith. Is Aaron Rodgers maybe the most valuable player in the NFL?
No, see, you can't have the person be injured. You just can't.
Look at what that. That Packers team was not good with him, but they were a winning team because of him. And you take him out of there, and they might be one of the worst teams in the NFL.
Yeah, and I mean, I just don't want to hear that. Oh, well, he's the most valuable player, because that's not what the award is. Like, yes,
who dictates what the award is?
The people who vote for it.
So you're telling me they can't vote for Aaron Rodgers?
They can vote, but I think it's a wasted vote, because that's not what it's.
There's no such thing as a wasted vote.
Yes, that's why. But
when I evaluate a most valuable player, I kind of evaluate it in terms of what that actually means. Is to me, when you take that player away, what does the team look like?
Exactly.
And to me right now, you guys have already mentioned it, Carson Wentz with the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think that team is 8-1 without the way Carson Wentz has been playing.
I think they're still a good team. I think they're still probably 5-4, 6-3. But yeah, no, I think you take Carson Wentz away from the Eagles, and maybe the whole Tom Brady MVP thing is the same as like the LeBron MVP thing. Like LeBron's always going to be a favorite for the MVP.
So like he legit has to do like outstanding numbers to even be like in the top 3 most of the time.
So and like LeBron without that team without LeBron is a totally
probably
different
the worst team. Like if we're just talking about this year's team, probably the worst team in the league. Like that's just
maybe.
I mean, if LeBron's putting up 35 and whatever, and they're losing by 17, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Just,
Anyways, Jacob, who's your MVP?
Carson Wentz.
Okay. So I actually saw him play in college one time. It was kind of cool. So yeah, Carson Wentz right now is everyone's favorite. So awesome right now.
And now we'll move on to Offensive Player of the Year. We'll go back to Sean. Who is your midseason Offensive Player of the Year?
Honestly, I think it stays with Carson Wentz. It's unless he stops putting up numbers, which doesn't really look like it. And they've kind of done this thing where they don't give the Offensive Player of the Year the MVP, which is really weird. Like, it really takes an outstanding performance, but I think in his second year that I think he could be able to get both. Included in this, I had Drew Brees or Tom Brady. I don't think Alex Smith is going to get Offensive Player of the Year just because people are going to have better numbers than him. So I think he would not get, I think he has a better chance to get MVP over Offensive Player of the Year. But for this, going again, Carson Wentz.
Going back in the last 10 years, the Offensive Player of the Year and the MVP has been the same 6 times. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna change some stuff up here. I'm gonna go Todd Gurley. The way he's been playing has been kind of resurrected. He's not done yet either. That offense is just clicking. So I'm gonna say Todd Gurley, Offensive Player of the Year.
And I actually am going to go with Alex Smith based on his numbers mid-season. If he can. It's the question, can he keep him up? But his mid-season numbers right now, he's got about 2,400 yards, 18 touchdowns. He only's thrown that 1 interception, which happened just this weekend. But also what he's able to do with his legs, and his passer rating is extremely high right now. Just what Alex Smith has done this season, it's on par with Carson Wentz. You can give it to a lot of different guys. The MVP, the Offensive Player of the Year races right now are extremely close, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So we will now move to Defensive Player of the Year.
This one was really hard because since I focus on Kansas City mainly, I had to branch out, and since it's kind of hard to I went based on stats and kind of where the internet kind of thought. So I think right now it would probably go to Calais Campbell of the Jaguars. But on my list, I also put DeMarcus Lawrence. He's number 2 in sack. And Kevin Bernard. I think that's how you pronounce it. He's a
Bayard from Tennessee.
Yeah, that one. I thought that this was like a different player, and they had put an A in his name. No, like it's a different like this is a second-year player with 6 interceptions, and I think they kind of value that with a league that has the interception numbers down that they might be able to throw him in there.
I'm going to go with Calais Campbell as well. Saxonville, baby. I mean, this team has a formula to win, and it makes no sense. It's kind of like the 2015 Broncos. I mean, great defense, good running game, quarterback play, who needs that? I mean,
they had Peyton Manning, so he could still make decisions minus that Chiefs game.
Yeah, I mean, Blake Bortles cannot at the moment, but Calais Campbell's got, I believe, 11 sacks so far through the season. Granted, I think 4 of them came in the opening game. Another guy, Everson Griffin, would be a guy that I don't think you can count out from the Vikings. I think he's got 10. And then, the Kevin Bayard from the Titans. So there's some guys you could definitely throw in there, but my vote would go Calais Campbell right now, and he's kind of resurrected his career in Jacksonville.
Yeah, I'm going to go Campbell as well. And just with the way Jacksonville's played, I feel as though you kind of got to give the Defensive Player of the Year to a player on one of the most dominant defenses, and that is in
definitely in a year where J.J. Watt's injured.
And the other thing is when you go back and look at who's won it, the last previous years, it always ends up being kind of the guy that gets the most sacks. And right now the sack leader is Calais Campbell. So midway through the season, I've got my Defensive Player of the Year as Calais Campbell, and we'll now go do Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Well, I'm going to go with Kareem Hunt, but I put that he needs to pick it up. He needs to stop having these 9-carry, 37-yard games. I put an interesting one here. Could Deshaun Watson still win this award?
I think you can make a valid argument that he does. I don't know that he will, but I think he can.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a thought. Another name, Juju Smith-Schuster, had the almost 200-yard game. Obviously, that's going to elevate you up to, hey, like at least your name's being said. And another running back, Leonard Fournette, I think.
Yep.
Minus the being left out of last games because he missed the team photo. Hey, I mean, if they're trying to build that organization,
is that what it was?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, hey, they still won, so I can't really, it's just, hey, you got left off. But honestly, the rookies haven't been fantastic.
But they've been steady.
Yeah. There hasn't been like a super outstanding one now that Deshaun Watson.
Sean, we've had the same pick for every one of these.
It's because, not that like these picks are easy, but there are a lot of front runners.
I'm going Kareem Hunt as well, just the way he's been playing. I think he's got to pick it up. Juju Smith-Schuster's playing really well. Alvin Kamara with the Saints is playing underratingly well. Leonard Fournette as well. I don't want to say Mitchell Trubisky. I don't think he's done enough, but I think
game where he threw completed 6 passes.
But they won, didn't they? Was it
that was the game against the Panthers. They had 2 defensive returns by the same guy from the same yard. Oh my goodness! Oh, it's also the game that No, that was the game after that Zach Miller. Fractured his leg and almost died.
Yeah, and I'm gonna finish off by going Kareem Hunt as well.
Nice.
Honestly, with mid-season, I wanted to give it to Deshaun Watson, but knowing he's hurt and I don't think there's any way he's going to end up with the award at the end of the season. But mid-season, I'd give it to Deshaun Watson, but with him hurt and with what Kareem Hunt has done, he's the league leader in rushing right now. Has over 1,100 yards, total scrimmage yards, and just the way he started off the season. Yes, he's fallen off a little bit, and it's gonna have to find his form again, maybe get some more touches, but I think Kareem Hunt will finish off a steady season, not putting up the numbers he put up at the start of the season, but still putting up solid numbers.
Yep.
So now we'll move to the defensive end for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
This one was really hard.
We might be different on this one.
I think because I put 6 players down, and I didn't really put one down that I thought. I think Tre'Davious White may be the national front runner for like everyone, but you could put Marshawn Lattimore, T.J. Watt. I think if he plays a little bit more, because I think from week 1 he was like, oh hey, look at what he's done. But
and his last name's gonna help him too.
That's true. Gerard Davis, who's also missed some games. Carl Lawson for the Bengals played really well, and then Rasul Douglas. I think those are the guys who could win it. But I think the front runner is Tre'Davious White, and I know we're supposed to like give out the person who's gonna win it. I don't know if I could pick because like there hasn't been a super dominant force like there was even last year with who won it last year? Bosa?
Yes.
Yeah, see, and like even he was out for a bit, and when he came back, he just surged up, and he's like, "Oh, here he is." But halfway through the year, I really haven't caught a guy that's been like, "Oh, hey, this is, like I'm gonna lead the." Well, I'm gonna be the leader for the defensive rookie of the year.
I'm gonna go Marshawn Lattimore just to be different. Really, I think it's kind of neck and neck between those two guys. He's been playing well. That's maybe part of the reason that the Saints defense has been stepping up. He's got 2 interceptions. He's got a lot of deflected passes. So I think right now he would be up there along with Tre'Davious White, T.J. Watt. But I'm gonna go Lattimore, the former Buckeye.
Yeah, and to speak to Sean's point, I agree with him. There hasn't really been that guy that's just stood out, and I agree that Tre'Davious White is your front runner. And to me, again, it comes down to if there's not someone that's really stood out, have they made an impact on their team? And I feel like he's helped out the Buffalo Bills a lot this year, adding the coverage in the secondary. So for me, right now, your front runner is Tre'Davious White.
Yeah,
sorry about that.
Tough one to say.
It's true.
And we'll move on to our final NFL mid-season award, Coach of the Year.
I put 3 names down here. I put Doug Peterson, Sean McVay, and Doug Marrone. I think I kind of wanted to pick guys who weren't just like the Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll.
Well, and I think everyone's definition, this is kind of like Sims MVP, it's your definition of what is a Coach of the Year.
The Rams were awful. They've already scored more points this year than they did last year.
They had
entirely.
scored like almost more points in the first 3 games than they had all year last year. But it just depends. Is your definition of Coach of the Year a coach that has turned stuff around? Is it a coach that's had a dominant season?
Well, if we're just looking at these 3 coaches, we have Doug Peterson. They finished 7-9. The Rams were a dumpster fire last year, and the Jaguars, while still having Blake Bortles, are finding ways to win games with their defense and being able to run the ball.
Does that mean Doug Marrone gets your vote?
No, I gave it to Doug Peterson because they're still 8-1. So, I think it's important to have the best record. But again, I just talked about it's kind of what you see it. Is it like the coach that helped their team the most? Because then it might be Sean McVay. I don't know. It's very hard to just pick one guy, but I'm giving it to Doug Peterson.
I would say Sean McVay. Not just because of the way that the fact that the Rams are 6-3, I believe, but it's the leaps and bounds that Jared Goff has made. I was very high on Jared Goff coming out of college. I thought he'd be a better quarterback than Wentz. There was something about him, the gunslinger mentality. And then after watching him last year, granted it was under Jeff Fisher, I thought, oh no, this poor guy, I'm going to look like an idiot for thinking this guy was a good NFL quarterback, and a lot of people have written him off already as one of the worst number 1 draft picks of all time, and maybe he'll end up being that. Who knows? But right now, Sean McVay looks like a genius. This is a young guy, too. He's only 31. He could have a really, really, really bright future in the NFL, and right now he's got them working wonders. So I'm gonna go Sean McVay.
And I have all, Doug Marrone, Doug Peterson, all those guys on my list, but the one guy we haven't talked about that I have on mine was Sean Payton with the New Orleans Saints, and I think
people just forget Sean Payton's there.
Yeah, and that's a name everyone's kind of heard before, and you're kind of forgotten that he's still there because it's Drew Brees town down there. But what he's done with the Saints this year, the Saints have been mediocre for several years now, and he's kind of turned them around. They're leading the NFC South, and I think he's up there on the list, but that's not who I would give Coach of the Year to. I have it as Doug Marrone in Jacksonville. I think just what he's done with that defense and then how he's managed Blake Bortles to help that team.
Great way to put it.
Win football games.
And I find it even interesting because Doug Marrone, that team is built on the defense. he's an offensive-minded coach. I mean, this is the guy that was the O-line coach, and he was a good coach in Buffalo. People forget that he turned Syracuse into a respectable program. He goes to Buffalo. They're 9-7. They're probably a quarterback away from making the playoffs. They get a new owner. There's some conflict between him and the new owner. He takes the buyout after 1 year and ends up in Jacksonville as their O-line coach. And right now he is, you can make a valid argument for him. I would say their defensive coordinator, his name's escaping me, but I'm going to guess Todd Walsh. I'm going to guess he will probably be a candidate for some head coaching jobs later on at the end of the year. I know teams are kind of going towards offensive-minded head coaches nowadays, but I think you'll see his name pop up on some head coaching searches later in the season.
And when looking up, trying to figure out who to pick for Coach of the Year, I was kind of sitting there. Can I put a defensive coordinator in the Coach of the Year position? No, you can't. But I mean that's how impressive the Jacksonville Jaguars defense has been this year.
Yeah, it's been amazing. I mean, last year I was really high on the Jaguars and they sucked, and then this year I kind of came into the intention that they were going to suck. And they've been really good. And I don't think Blake Bortles is quite as bad as Sean does. I don't think he's good. But I think you really have to manage the game with Blake Bortles. But that'll be an interesting formula come January or December when you have the run game, you have the defense, but you might have Blake Bortles make some plays.
And I think that will wrap up our NFL mid-season awards. So as we finish off about every one of our podcasts, we're going to move to NASCAR and make our NASCAR picks for the weekend. NASCAR was at Texas last weekend where Kevin Harvick was able to make a late race pass on Martin Truex Jr. and lock himself into the Championship 4. Martin Truex Jr. scored enough points. He is also locked into the Championship 4 with Kyle Busch, so just one spot remains. So, Trevor, who do you have at Phoenix this weekend?
Well, when you look at it right now, that one spot remaining for the Championship 4, you got Brad Keselowski, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, and Jimmy Johnson. Brad Keselowski has got a decent lead in points. He's 19 points ahead of Denny Hamlin. So for Hamlin, Blaney, Elliott, and Johnson, who are on the outside looking in, it's pretty simple. You have to win, pretty much. I mean, you can't bank on Brad Keselowski having a bad day and being able to make up those points. You have to be able to put yourself in a position to win. And when I look at it, the one guy to me that I think has the most success at Phoenix, and it tends to run really well at these 1 mile tracks, is Denny Hamlin. That would be my pick to win at Phoenix this week. The only scenario I find really interesting is, let's say Chase Elliott's 2 or 3 laps down and has no legitimate shot at winning. Is there a little bit of redemption there? I mean, we saw it a couple years ago with Jeff Gordon and Clint Boyer, and we saw it most recently with Matt Kenseth and Joey Logano. Does that maybe cross Chase's mind if he's out of it 2-3 laps behind? He says, screw it, I'm not winning the championship, neither does he.
I don't think Chase would go and wreck Denny Hamlin. If
people didn't think Jeff Gordon would do that.
Yeah, but what I think Chase would do is if he's 2 or 3 laps down, kind of wait for him and mess with him to the point where he no longer wins the race.
I think you wreck him.
He doesn't.
You look. Jeff Gordon and Matt Kenseth were two guys that, to me, when they both did that, I was like, I would not have expected from those two. And I think Chase Elliott is still early in his career, so I don't know if it's fair to give him that assessment yet. But I think, if I was Chase Elliott, I would. I mean, I'm gonna get suspended for the last race of the season that won't actually.
Oh no!
See, I've been able to. No, I've never personally met Chase, but I've been able to be in the same pit area as him as he's come up through the lower ranks of racing, and I just don't think Chase would do that. But I absolutely think he would make it difficult on Denny Hamlin.
I don't know, man. That he was pretty mad at Martinsville.
To see Chase Elliott get out of his car and do that. Chase is a very mild-mannered kid.
And I looked at that the same way as I looked at, when it was Jeff Gordon that did it or Jeff Burton. Like, man, you really made that guy mad. You messed up. But that could have cost him the championship because that was his best, and it was his best chance of getting to the championship was at Martinsville. And if he's 2 or 3 laps down on Sunday and it doesn't look like he's got a shot at it, he might say, I'm not winning the championship. Neither is Denny. I hope that doesn't happen, although I kind of do at the same time because I like drama when it comes to NASCAR, but I did pick Denny Hamlin, so I hope it doesn't.
Sean, do you have a pick for this weekend?
You know what?
You picked Danica.
You got jokes over there. So I'm gonna pick from the top 8 because I feel like
Sean did
I
some
don't
research.
know. No, I didn't. I pulled up the 4-letter brands page and I was like, oh, let's look at the top 8. So out of all these guys, only one person doesn't have a win, and you guys talked about him. Picking Chase Elliott. It's my lock
I
of
love
the week.
Sean's analysis on these picks.
Hey, he's the only guy that doesn't have a win, so why not now?
So for me, when I look at, first off, the points, I think with the stage points, both Denny Hamlin and Ryan Blaney still have an opportunity to point their way in.
I think
Because if Denny Hamlin runs, third in each stage, and Brad
He'd be in
Keselowski's
16
back there
points.
at 8th, 9th, or 10th, and then they end the race like that, all of a sudden you're right there on that point number. So I think both of Blaney and Hamlin can point their way in. Chase Elliott and Jimmy Johnson have to win the race.
Yeah.
Jimmy Johnson hasn't shown anything during the playoffs to say he's going to be able to
wouldn't
figure
it be
that out.
So I've always looked at Jimmy in the same way that I look at like Tom Brady and the Patriots. Wouldn't it be so like Jimmy to find a way to win at Phoenix and get in, and then find a way to win at Homestead and win a championship in a year where he had absolutely no business winning a championship? I don't think it'll happen.
Quick question.
Quick answer.
For going into the final race, is the person who finishes best, or is it still based on points?
The best finish.
Wow.
Are they still doing? Are they taking away stage points? I don't think they are. Are they?
I believe it's just whoever finishes.
That's
Is it?
weird.
I think there's still
I
going
don't
to be
know if I like
stages, but
that.
it's going
I
to be.
don't know if I like that,
That's something
honestly.
that we probably need to go figure out.
That is
if
something that I really
they're going to have
need to actually look
stage
into.
finishes, but I think we'll have Trevor figure that out real quick. But for this race, I think Chase. I'm with Sean, but for a completely different reason. I think
Probably
Chase
a better
Elliott.
reason, honestly.
He's had the speed since he's gotten to the Monster Energy Cup Series. He's had the speed, 6 runner-up finishes. He just has not been able to find a way to victory lane. And I think Chase Elliott, in maybe a last lap pass on Denny Hamlin, not last lap, but a late race pass on Denny Hamlin, wouldn't that provide some much needed drama for NASCAR? But I think Chase Elliott wins this weekend at Phoenix, and then goes to Homestead. And if you give Chase Elliott a shot at Homestead with the way finally getting to victory lane, that's another interesting thought.
So I found this. This is from For the Win on USA Today. Always a good read. The question is the final race different from the others? Yes, the last race at Homestead Miami Speedway is a winner-take-all situation. Once the green flag flies, the final 4 drivers' playoff points are no longer matter. The race will still be broken into 3 stages, but no playoff points will be awarded to the winners. So it's whoever finishes best. And I think it's a bummer that you look at a guy like Kyle Larson. If he could have got to Homestead Miami, I think he would have been the favorite. But, he was long gone before that. So you guys both go Chase Elliott on this. That's interesting. He hasn't ran bad at Phoenix. He's ran good, but I think Denny gets it done. I'm going to go Denny. So
Well, that will wrap it up here for the X106 Sports Podcast. I am Jacob.
Next week we'll have a great show, by the way. I know Jacob's really looking forward to it, and so is Sean. What do we do next week, Sean?
We got to cover some wrestling, got to cover some NASCAR championships, and we're covering college basketball.
This is great because Sean's a huge college basketball guy. Sean and I are both huge professional wrestling fans, and then Jacob and I are both huge NASCAR fans, so it's a perfect show. So definitely tune in next week as we'll look ahead to the NASCAR Championship at Homestead Miami Speedway. We will look at Survivor Series, which will be next Sunday
go
night.
match by match.
We'll go match by match, prediction by prediction, so Jacob get to studying, and then we'll look at the college basketball season because it starts this week.
Yeah, it starts
Friday.
at least
Friday.
Not really anything good, but you get some really good matchups this time next week. So yeah, I'm excited for that.
We'll have a lot to talk about. That we normally record these on Tuesdays, and there'll be some big matchups in college basketball that Tuesday night. But
next Tuesday, Kansas plays Kentucky and Duke plays Michigan State. Will be recorded before that, but won't be out just yet. But the games will be happening.
Yeah.
But that will do it for us here on the X106 Sports Podcast. I am Jacob Blair alongside Sean Nino and Trevor Mater.